that's because one of the requests is actually greater than what was advertised, or?
Yes, yeah, the side yard setback was incorrectly identified on the agenda. It was just a math error, that's all.
So they need more than what they're asking for.
Correct, yeah. Again, it's not, it's just a math error. The position of the home isn't actually physically changing on the lot.
I was just making sure if it wasn't less, I'd say we could just go with it. I just wanted to make sure.
Unfortunately, it's more on at least one side. It might be less on the other side. Yeah. Brittany, can you confirm that? Is it more on one side and less on the other as far as the variance that they're asking for?
Yeah. So the north side's 24.1 feet, and the south side is going to be a 14-foot variance when it's corrected next notice.
So it goes from 14.7 to 14.
Right, and then the other one is a 4-point something variance, but it's actually a 20, 20 something.
Been there, done that. Got to renotice it. Pain in the butt.
It is a pain in the butt. Fortunately, though, with these lovely COVID rules, we are not obligated to post it in a newspaper, so we save a good amount of money that way.
I know. It's just such a blessing.
Yeah.
Fortunate for everybody but Mr. Current.
Yeah, exactly. I just read, I think today or yesterday, that they're moving all of their publication operations out of the state of Connecticut.
There are some towns that run the legal notices for virtual meetings in the paper, and so they run every calling option, every phone number across the country. They run the Zoom link, they run the password. So they have their legals have grossly expanded in cost.
That's crazy.
It's nuts. But don't worry, we have a crazy procedure here for reading public hearings, so you're making up for the crazy.
You got that right. I'm sitting 5:57. All right. Give our a couple minutes here, and then perhaps I will try putting a call into him, or maybe Brittany can call from her desk phone over there. Would you mind doing that, Brittany? Just putting a call into Mike Regan and seeing if he's what his story is. Thank you.
He's coming on now.
Terrific.
Just in the nick of time. All right, Brian, I've got 6 o'clock. I'm going to crank it up. Okay. So good evening, everyone. I am Todd Doyle. Welcome everyone to the Zoom meeting of the West Hartford Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I'd like to welcome you all to this evening's virtual meeting and public hearing. Required meeting agenda, application materials, and legal notice are all available on the town website. Because in-person attendance at public meetings is likely to increase the risk of transmission of COVID-19, this hearing is being conducted in accordance with Governor Lamont's Executive Order number 7B and 7I. Will the zoning enforcement officer please call the roll?
I'd be happy to. Commissioner D'Amato.
Present.
Commissioner DiMatteo.
Present.
Commissioner Doyle.
Still here.
Commissioner Harris is not here. Commissioner Morales.
Here.
And Commissioner Neville.
Present.
Thank you. Who am I missing? Who's also? Commissioner Johnson is not here. I don't hear Commissioner Johnson. I'm going to say no. All right, Mr. Chairman, that takes care of the roll.
One more, Michael.
I've got Michael Johnson. That's a no, right? And then I've got Commissioner John Harris, which is also a no. I believe that takes care of everybody. That's 7 total commissioners, which is how many we have.
Mr. D'Amato?
Mr. D'Amato already said he was here. Right? Did I miss you, Mike D'Amato? I thought I read you first.
I think Todd said my here for me. I didn't unmute fast enough, but I'm here. I can leave if you want.
All right, good. No, I guess I was confused. I thought he called my name, and that's why I said here twice. Sorry about that, Michael. Okay, thank you, Brian. For the record, this is, I would like to note that we have a full quorum of the board here. Board meetings and town staff are participating via WebEx. Members of the public can view the meeting live on West Hartford Community Television or on West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 5 and Frontier TV Channel 6098 or at www.whctv.org. The meeting is also being recorded for on-demand viewing, which will be available on the town website. Because of the virtual format of this hearing, there are some special rules and procedures that I need to cover before I begin. First, I ask all participants to please mute the microphones on your devices when you are not speaking. Second, pursuant to Executive Order 7B, all speakers must state their name and title each time they speak. Also, I will ask members of the board and the applicant not to address other participants directly. Board and requests for information must be made, quote, through the chair. After you state your name, simply preface your question or comment with through the chair. When you are done, I will recognize the person who is most appropriate to respond. Although these practices may feel rigid and awkward, they will ensure that the meeting is conducted in an orderly fashion and that members of the public who are listening can understand the discussion. With that, will the zoning enforcement officer please read the first legal notice?
Certainly. The Zoning Board of Appeals special meeting, this is the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's not a special meeting, but it is our public hearing agenda, and it's on Wednesday, October 21st, 2020 at 6 p.m., and this is a virtual meeting. The Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a virtual meeting on Wednesday, October 21st, 2020 at 6 p.m. to hear and act on the following petitions. Petition number 13-20, 82 Van Buren Avenue, petition of M. Regan requesting a variance to section 177-20, obstructions in yards, requesting a 4-foot 4-inch variance to the 10-foot side yard setback for the construction of a landing and stairs for a new deck in the R10 zone. Bear with me here. Virtual meeting viewing instructions. The public hearing will be conducted exclusively as virtual meetings in accordance with the Executive Order 7B and 7I issued by Governor Ned Lamont. The public hearings will be broadcast live on television on West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 5, Frontier TV Channel 6098, and streamed live at www.whctv.org. Audio comment. Any interested person may participate in real time by calling 1-408-418-9388 and using the following access code 173-589-5425 at 6 p.m. Participants using caller ID blocking will not be permitted to participate. Participants will be called on in the order in which their call is received. When prompted by the chair and/or moderator, participants will have the permission to speak on matters germane to the hearing. Written comment. Any interested persons may submit a written comment via email to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov. Written comments will be made part of the record at the October 21st, 2020 public hearing and posted on the town's website. In order to be included as part of the record, comments must meet the following requirements. Comments must be received no later than 3:30 p.m. on October 21st, or if you're listening to this, you can send in comments now. The subject of the email shall be application number and address, CBA October 21st, public hearing. The body of the email must begin with the interested person's full name and street address, and comments must be germane to the application and no longer than 500 words. And just to confirm that we did send out abutters notices, and a sign was duly posted on the property for 7 days prior to the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Public. As promised, because of the virtual meeting format, there are some special rules and procedures regarding hearings that I need to cover before we begin. First, phone access is only intended for members of the public who wish to actively participate and provide comments on the noticed application for number 13-20. If you are interested in speaking on this item, please call 1-408-418-9388 and enter access code 173-589-5425. If you are on the phone and do not plan to speak, please hang up and watch live on television on West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 5, Frontier TV Channel 6098, or streaming at www.whctv.org. Again, if you do not plan to comment on the application for 82 Van Buren Avenue, please hang up your phone now and instead listen to the hearing on television or internet. For members of the public who are still on the phone, please do not mute your device. The meeting moderator will keep everyone's line muted until it is your turn to speak. If you mute your own line, the moderator may not hear your voice when he calls for comment. Second, I would like to describe how the hand-raising process will work. Our conference technology does not allow us to identify individual callers by name. So when the public comment portion of the meeting begins, the moderator will randomly unmute one call-in line and ask everyone to say their name at the same time. The voice that we hear will belong to the person whose line is unmuted. That person will then be recognized by the moderator and asked to restate their name and provide their street address. We will repeat this process until we have unmuted every phone line. It is important that you say your name each time that you are prompted by the moderator. If the moderator unmutes a phone line and does not hear a voice after the prompt, that phone line will be removed from the conference. If you had called in and are also streaming the meeting on YouTube or watching on TV, please silence your other device when you speak. Otherwise, there will be an echo because of a slight delay in the TV and streaming broadcast. Third, I ask that all speakers keep their comments brief and germane to the application. Obscene, offensive, or threatening language will not be tolerated. Anyone violating this rule will receive a warning, and if the conduct continues, I'll ask the moderator to mute that person's phone line for the remainder of the meeting. If the violation is egregious, that person will be muted immediately. Fourth, the public was provided opportunity to submit written comments on the application via mail and email. The comments have been published on the town's website as a .pdf file and are embedded in the online agenda. For the record, the zoning enforcement officer will now read the names of all those who submitted written comments.
We received no written comments at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Birmingham. Members of the public are welcome to continue sending comments to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.org, and those comments will be distributed to the members of the board and also read into the record. Finally, I'd like to outline for all attendees rules of engagement and how the board operates the public hearing. Those presenting or commenting should state their name and address for the record, and please spell your name. Board members may ask questions during the testimony of the applicant. All questions and comments will be directed through the chair, as previously explained, and after recognition by the chair, including follow-ups. If feasible, the chair will have the members hold all questions until the end of the applicant's presentation or the end of a logical break in the applicant's presentation. Following testimony of the applicant, the public will have a chance to comment both for and against in the manner formally described. Upon conclusion of the public's comments, the applicant will have an opportunity to address the opinions expressed. Upon conclusion of the applicant's rebuttal, and if there are no further questions from the board, the public hearing will be closed. It is the practice of the board to render a decision on the application the same night following all items on the public meeting agenda. I'd like to conclude by thanking everyone in advance for your patience. And with that, will the applicant please proceed with their presentation? Mr. Regan. You may be on mute, sir. Mr. Moderator, are there any settings we can adjust? Mr. Regan is telling us that he keeps muting and unmuting, but we can't hear him whether he's muted or unmuted.
I've been trying to unmute and remute him myself. Maybe if he could exit and rejoin the meeting, we might have a better chance there.
All right, Mr. Regan, I apologize for the inconvenience, but if you don't mind logging off and then trying to dial back into the meeting.
Right.
Thank you.
All right.
We can hear you.
You can hear me now.
Yes, welcome back.
Wonderful. It's nice when something actually works when you try it. So my name is Michael Regan, Michaelregan. I'm the owner and operator of Regan Total Construction, and I've been requested to represent for Julie and Dan Dubois, the owners of 82 Van Buren Ave, to apply for a variance that would allow us to build a set of stairs to get down from a deck off the back of their house. The only real reason we are requesting the variance is that due to the shape of their driveway and how it wraps around the back of their home and then leads into the garage, there's no other position in which we could build a set of stairs that would not block the garage access. So we're trying to keep it within an absolute minimum. There is a pre-existing structure on the side of the home, which is a landing from a side door in the front of the house. That it measures the same distance we're applying to have a variance on, trying to keep everything in a line. And essentially that's our case. It's more of a forced hand where we don't have another option.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Regan. So the existing laundry, is that what that is? The brick laundry, the 52.5?
Existing landing.
Existing landing.
Yep.
Brian, was there a variance for that? You're on mute, Brian.
No, there was no variance for that. It's possible that it was permitted as a major obstruction, and sometimes these things are permitted as major obstructions. The stairway that Mr. Regan is proposing can't be permitted as an obstruction in that same way because it's quite high off the ground and it extends all the way down to grade, whereas the other one is at grade pretty much.
Okay, all right. So I guess the question I'm asking, Brian, is if there's a 52, whatever the dimension is, it looks like the same dimension. If there's already some sort of exception for that landing further on the lot, does that exception not apply also to the stairs that they're proposing for the deck?
No, it wouldn't apply.
Okay, all right. And then, Mr. Regan, just a question. So on the left hand, I'm looking at the diagram that shows the driveway at the bottom and the stairs on the right. And my question is, well, gee, why don't we just put the stairs on the left?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Someone had muted and remuted. I just want to make sure of that. The reason being is the driveway comes down that side of the house, and basically you have to wrap around and then reface the house to get into the garage. So by putting a set of stairs there, it would block the car's ability to get towards the garage itself.
Okay, and I'm just looking at the diagram, and it looks like there's on that diagram you have, and I apologize, I did not have a chance to go out and visit the property.
No
On that
worries.
diagram you have, it seems like there's kind of an empty, what would be a pie-shaped area between the house and the driveway. And so you couldn't drive a car there anyway, to the left of the proposed deck. You couldn't drive a car right up to the deck, right?
You can. So basically, the way the property sits in the diagram you're looking at, you're
Yeah.
looking at the back of the house. The driveway comes from the street down the left side of the house from this view,
Yes.
and the asphalt is connecting to the house 100% of the back of the house as soon as you come around that corner.
Yes.
So basically, by putting a set of stairs in there, because of the height we're at, the stairs extend past the depth of the deck and would block a car from being able to go underneath the deck and enter their garage.
And again, I'm just asking so that I understand. If we did the stairs straight, right to left along the bottom.
I understand what you're asking there. The problem with that is it will block the door that enters their home from the back of the house at that point.
Okay. Okay. And so there's no deck there now, correct?
No, there's not a deck there now.
Okay. And will the deck have access directly into the house?
Yes.
Okay, so this is just getting from the deck to the outside backyard.
Yeah. As of right now, there wouldn't be direct access. There's no door there. They have some windows that they will in the future remodel and hopefully add a door to make direct access to the deck. But at this point, the only way to get on and off the deck would be this landing and stairs.
Okay. Okay. So one of the questions that, and I'll try and preview what others in the commission may ask. Well, gee, if we need to provide the minimum, if we take a minimalist approach to granting variances, is there a real need or a hardship to have that stair run from the deck right to the backyard? I mean, they could just go back in the house, come out the garage doors or out another door, and then they're at the same spot. So what is the hardship that necessitates having stairs from the outside directly to the deck?
As of right now, it would be the only way to access the deck. And putting these stairs in any other location would either block entrance to their home by covering a door entry, or would block the ability to drive a car into the garage of the home.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone else, any other members of the commission like to address the question?
I have a question. Mr. Regan, I have the picture of the back of the house
Yes.
that you had provided. So if I'm understanding from the sketch, the deck is going to be above the two existing garage doors.
Correct.
Okay. And so how are they going to get in with the supports? Aren't they going to have a problem with the supports anyway?
No, we'll be able to build a large enough beam to span from one side of the deck to the other. And then they purposely are trying to choose to keep the deck at a certain depth in which they'll be able to drive around to access the garage. They're choosing not to go any further because then it could cause an issue like you're mentioning now where the deck would block access to the garage as it is anyways.
So if I'm understanding, if I'm looking at this picture, the way that the deck is going to go, if they put it off of the left side facing the back of the house, it's going to interfere with the door on the left?
Correct.
Why can't they just make it a down and back? Is there not enough room between that door and?
That's the case.
So even on a down, I mean, I understand if you had a full length one, but even a down and back staircase won't fit?
No, it's very close to that door. And with the down and back, I'd have to create a large enough landing that would increase more footings and posts that'll block more movement in the back of their home for their vehicles and being able to go in and out of the door.
Right. So here's the problem I think that some of us are probably going to struggle with is that we very often get requests from people for variances because what they want to do works better if there's a variance. And some on the board are pretty strict about the bases have to be something that's endemic to the property. So sometimes what we end up with is you can't put a deck somewhere because there's wetlands or there's too mossy or sort of whatever and so I just want to let you know that what I'm hearing at this point is that this is what the homeowners want. And I understand it. We all have houses. We all appreciate all of that. I just want to let you know that in the absence of something that has to do with the property, some people may struggle a little bit with granting the variance. So I offer that merely so you have the opportunity, if there's other things that we didn't know, that you would be able to let us know, if that makes sense.
No, I appreciate that. And essentially, it's basically if they want to build this deck and still have access to their garage and access to the doors in the back of their home, this is kind of the only size and stair location that they could build. I did try to come up with many different scenarios to make this all functional. And I would prefer that there was one because we would already be able to start and do the project. But unfortunately, in their scenario, there just is not, which is why I had to apply for this variance.
Mr. Regan, another question, maybe getting at the same issue. Will there be a door above the garage that accesses the deck directly?
Not at this time. They will some point in the future, they hope to, but right now it is just some brick windows that are up there. There would not be an actual door to be able to access the deck. It's merely we'd only be able to get on and off the deck from the stairs.
And noting that this is a brick home, would it, if they said to you, "Hey, Mr. Regan, we just want the door right there, leading above, door above the garage, leading right onto the deck. We can bring our, we can entertain outdoors or what have you." Is that a difficult undertaking to put a door in a brick wall?
It is. It's much more difficult to deal with a brick change to a structural wall than it would be if it was a framed wood wall, in which we could basically create temporary supports, install the new structural aspects. With brick, it gets a little more difficult. I mean, it is a possible thing to do. It's not impossible, but it is very difficult to do.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say is if they want a deck and they don't want to rappel up and down to it, the only thing they can do to have access to the deck is have a stairwell that goes, it can't go anywhere else because you get the driveway. The stairway must go along that end of the property there.
Correct.
I have a quick question, Brian. How common, maybe you don't know, how common is this property setup in town with this rear yard, forward loading, rear garage where they're coming through the whole, I mean, the whole rear yard from end to end is paved. They come down the backyard, they come around, have to go 180 degrees and then enter this forward loading rear yard garage. Is that typical? Do we have a lot of that?
No, I would say it's not typical. There's certainly some homes that have that configuration, but it's not the norm. I would say I wouldn't be able to give you a percentage off the top of my head, but it would be a small percentage relative to the number of houses in town.
I agree that I don't think that sort of the second question is unreasonable. That what he wants to do is, I don't see any other way for him to do it. The question is, what are we depriving him of reasonable use of the property because he's not being allowed to have a deck? So I'm okay with this is the only way it makes sense to build the deck. I'm trying to figure out if it makes sense, if I'm okay with, okay, he deserves to have the deck because, you know, sort of self-created in some way. So I don't think there's any other way he can do it. I don't know if it's, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm going to leave it there.
Yeah, and I don't know, Mr. D'Amato, if it's a question of does he deserve to have a deck? It's just, is a deck feasible for this property, right? Given that it has the setup that it has, maybe this property just isn't suitable for a deck, I guess is what is the question that we're circling around.
Well, also
Talking about-
I noticed that there is not a lot of green area behind the house. It's just a hard top. So it's probably very hard for these property owners to be outside, except in the front yard or on the hard top.
Would the deck have to have a form of egress other than a door to the house? In other words, if they didn't put it, if they did put a door in the house, was there any building requirement that says we don't care, you have to have a way to get off the deck because it's elevated? Is there, because the reality is that's what they could do. And then they would be able to have the deck, right? If they didn't need the stairs at all. I'm just curious if there's a building requirement that has that. If anybody knows, Mr. Regan or Mr. Pudlick, Mrs. Birmingham, anybody?
Unfortunately, I don't know that as a fact. It might be the case. It also might not. I do not know that off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Same for me. I unfortunately don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, that's an important point. If they need to have egress from the deck for one reason or another, then I think that's an important distinction, you know, in considering hardship. Self-created and financial are two things that don't qualify, and wanting a deck is self-created because the deck's not there. If the deck was there and they needed access, then the landing would be different because the code would require it. But he's asking to create the issue that kind of presents the obstruction that needs the variance. So I would, you know, it'd be good to know if he needed that access directly.
So, Mr. Regan, I think you get a sense of the kinds of questions that the board is grappling with. It's a question of our remit is to grant a variance where there's a demonstrated hardship, so that it deprives the homeowner of the reasonable use of the property. If it's a question of, hey, I'd like a deck, well, you know, maybe you'd also like a 3-story barn, but it's just not permitted in the particular zone. And our charge is to make sure that the zoning rules are adhered to. It's a legitimate question, and I don't even know if you necessarily. Let me put it a different way. If there was a requirement that you needed an outside egress, you still don't necessarily need a deck unless you tell us otherwise. Like, you know, there's just no other way to get to the back of the house, but it looks like there's a door to the left of the deck from the behind that gets you into the house. You know, so I think, and again, we're not trying to beat you up. We're just trying to tell you the things that we're struggling with to give you an opportunity to maybe address them and think about them. And if it's preferable, we're happy to grant the continuance and you can research these issues and come back. But these are the kinds of things we're thinking about.
It makes sense. Those are all good points. Essentially, I think the most, the best word for this, but the point that was brought up that probably would make the most sense here is the factor of whether or not you're allowing them to build a deck or not with their home is an okay decision to make. The yard is extremely small in the front, and the backyard essentially is all blacktop. So they would have almost no space to be outside unless they're on their blacktop, playing some basketball or something like that. Because there really is not much of a yard at all; it just drops straight off, and basically creates like a wooded area. So if it was something where you felt, hey, we don't have to allow them to have a deck because this is just a poorly designed property, then I guess that would answer your question in one way. But if it's something where you're like, this person should be allowed to have a deck, this is really the only way to access it at this present moment and not cause other problems with other access to the house and garage and things of that nature.
It's a question of whether, there are plenty of houses in town without decks, right? So is it a hardship to need a deck? Well, we can debate about that. The other point, though, and maybe this is an area where we can have some productive discussions, is if I'm reading the chart, the map right, it's 135-foot depth lot. That sound about right? 136, 135?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Because
Plan looks like 135 by 67.
135 by 67, and I'm looking at it, right, and I don't think the garage, the driveway necessarily goes much past, I don't know, half, maybe a little over half of the backyard. So there's still plenty of green behind, unless I'm missing something. And
Yeah, it's basically where their blacktop ends. There's another 10 feet of dirt and grass, and then it drops straight off, extremely steep pitch, and is a wooden area. So I guess that is more land that they own. It's just not land that's going to be able to have any sort of use to it because of the pitch.
Got it. Okay. All right. So what we're really talking about here, cast another way, is if the homeowners are to have reasonable access to their outside space of their home, this deck is a necessity, because otherwise, they're climbing up the mountain, they're rappelling down the mountain, back of their yard. Okay. All right. Other commissioners that have a question for Mr. Regan before we close the public portion of the hearing? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Regan, I'll offer you this opportunity. You can decide whether you think it's necessary or not. If you would want to continue the hearing to next month and maybe have some answers to the questions about whether there needs to be an outside egress, even if there is an internal egress, whether you think that might make a difference to your application. I offer that to you. If we vote on it, I think, Brian, maybe we can make a special exception, but I think if we vote on it, the homeowners would need to file a separate application in a few months' time. So before we close the public portion of the hearing, Mr. Regan, would you like us to continue this to next month?
I don't think that'll be necessary.
Okay. All right, that's fine. So with that, that closes this. Thank you again. That closes the testimony. I'd like to take this opportunity, Mr. Moderator, is there anyone in the public who is would like to speak either in favor or against the application?
Chairman, I see no call-in users.
Okay. All right. So with that, we'll close this public portion of the hearing, and then we will vote later this evening on your application. Thanks, Mr. Regan.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Mr. Pudlick, would you please read the name of the legal notice application?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Zoning Board of Appeals special meeting, public hearing and agenda Wednesday, October 21st, 2020, 6 p.m. virtual meeting. Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a virtual meeting on Wednesday, October 21st, 2020 at 6 p.m. to hear and act on the following petition. Petition number 14-20, 5052 Maplewood Avenue. Petition of M. Miranda requesting a variance to section 177-20, obstructions in yards, requesting a 4.6-foot variance to the north side of the property and a 14.7-foot variance to the south side of the property. I'm sorry, variance to the south side of the property, a 28.7-foot side yard setback to convert a two-family, to the 28.7-foot side yard setback to convert a two-family home to a three-family home. In addition, requesting a variance to section 177-6E, standards of multifamily residence districts, requesting an 8% variance to the 20% maximum lot coverage of all buildings, and a 1,166 square foot variance to the required 3,000 square foot required per lot area per dwelling unit. No new exterior improvements are proposed as part of this application, and this is in the RM3 zone. And what I'm going to do here is simply indicate to members of the public that may be listening, and it doesn't appear as though we've got anybody called in, but I'm just going to make the comment that due to a notice issue in which we've recognized that there was a math error in establishing the required side yard variance here, that I am going to request that the commission continue this particular application until November. We will correct the notice and the agenda accordingly at that time, and then we will hear that request in addition to the other requests that are associated with this particular application. So I'm not going to go through and read the virtual meeting instructions, and instead simply going to suggest that the commissioners simply make a motion to continue this particular item to next month.
Thank you, Mr. Pudlick. Yes, we are aware that there was an error in the notice. So I'd like to hereby make a motion that we continue the application for application 14-20 to next month's meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I'll just do a roll call vote on that particular item, and then we'll go back to petition number 13-20. So a roll call vote on the continuance. Commissioner D'Amato.
Yes.
Commissioner DiMatteo.
Yes.
Commissioner Doyle.
Yes.
Commissioner Morales.
Yes.
And Commissioner Neville.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so 14-20 is continued to next month. That's the end of our public hearing, so the public portion of the hearing is now closed. I'd now like to have a discussion on application 13-20. May I get a motion to approve 13-20?
So move.
And second?
Second, Angelo DiMatteo.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, so discussion. This is an interesting case, right? Is a deck a necessity? And I think there are a couple of things that we've heard tonight that suggest that maybe this isn't just an ordinary deck. One is unique setup of the driveway that kind of circles around the back of the home. The second is the feasibility of putting a door into a brick facade at the rear of the home. And the third is outside access to the home is limited by virtue of the fact that post blacktop, after the blacktop, we have a steep pitch of the lot. So with those things in mind, how do we feel about granting this variance on the grounds that there are features unique to the property or the lot that argue in favor of a variance for a deck? What do you think, Ms. Morales?
I think this property is the owners don't have enough access to outside yard, being that the only area they have outside is the blacktop that they use to park the cars, and then the other green area is inaccessible. So I would be inclined to vote in favor of this application.
Thank you. Yeah, and maybe it's just the time of the year and what a spectacular day it was today, but it's hard to imagine not being able to have access to just sit outside. On your deck,
Especially with COVID, you can go anywhere.
right? Yeah. Okay. I'm leaning in that direction. Mr. Neville, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to vote against it.
Yeah.
I just, I understand the desire for a deck. I mean, I get it, but the problem I have is it could be cured by putting a door in, and they don't want to do it. I think because it's too expensive, and I get that. But if you start saying, well, putting a door in concrete is too expensive, then to me, that's not a reason. And I understand that they have unique aspects that all sort of come together, but those all existed when they bought the house. And historically, at least from my perspective, the unique nature of property is generally something that's either endemic to the building lines, like we have corner lots that end up with double building lines, things that just are not quite fair as they stand. And it seems odd to me. I mean, they're going to get a deck that they can't access except to go outside. So they're going to, and I understand it's elevated, so it's better than what they have now. I struggle with the idea that this is fair use of the property, I guess is where I come down.
Mr. D'Amato?
So I am leaning towards not voting in favor of it, acknowledging that they need all four of us to vote yes, since there's only four of us. I guess the pressure's off. There's only four commissioners here, right?
Angelo.
Oh, sorry. I struggle with the fact that there is no deck now, so this hardship is self-created, and a self-created hardship is not a hardship. It's financial in nature, like I said, because of the cost of putting in the door, and I don't think that not having a deck is an unreasonable prohibition. I can't have a deck where I am. The variance guidance is that the characteristic be something unique and not present elsewhere in the district, and I don't think that this setup is unique in this area of town, and the deck itself is fine. It's just the landing, and I think he can go ahead and build the deck, and that's what I think is the most appropriate approach.
The landing, thank you. The landing is, the space between the house and the fence is very narrow. So the landing would almost be right on top of the neighbor's property. What do you think, Angelo? Mr. DiMatteo, Commissioner DiMatteo.
Yes, I'm torn. I'm definitely torn. I can appreciate everyone's comments for and against. I do believe from a safety standpoint, they need to have, obviously, and I think they have to have an egress. They have to have two. They have to be able to get. I think they need the stairs, obviously, right now. But if they had even an entry point from the house to the deck, I think you still need the stairs. I think I could be wrong. I think the fire marshal would know that, right, Brian?
You're muted, Brian.
I suspect that would be a building code question as it relates to this property because it's a single family home. Fire marshal and the fire code doesn't kick in until you hit 3 family. Okay.
And then the other thing, Todd, you just brought it up too. It's going to be right. It looks like it's right on top of the fence, right? If I'm looking at the specs here, is it going to be like 2 feet or 12 inches from that fence that's in the photo looking at the garage?
It's
I'm
funny.
trying to figure out where the stairs go.
Yeah, it looks like that from the diagram, but then when you look at the picture, you're like, I don't even think they can fit 52 inches there.
Well, I agree. And then if you look at the photo again, looking at the garage door, um, you know, I get it. You know, the neighbor has a deck, and then if you look at the other photo, the neighbor to the right has a deck. You know, I don't know where those entry points are, but I'm super torn on this. I really am.
Yeah, Mr. Moore,
I don't
you
know.
just said something that was really interesting, which was the only way to get there currently, unless they put a door, maybe it was you, Mr. D'Amato, unless they put a door in the back wall, they got to go outside. They're
Yeah,
already outside. Now they're just going up.
Don brought that up.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion?
I would just say that we had a similar application talk about access in what was that last meeting or the meeting before, and I don't think that the need has been demonstrated differently here. That's my issue. I fundamentally think that there should people have a right to use their property. The problem I'm running into is that I don't personally believe, and based on, and I'm not a building official, but I don't believe that the code would require it. I think if it required it, the contractor would have incorporated that into the plan because it would have been mandated, and we won't know. But I don't see it to be unreasonable that someone has to go back into their house to exit their home, and I can't get past that.
Yeah, I'm stuck on the fact that it looks like it's going to be on top of the fence and it's going to be on the property line. Very, you know.
Have you seen a deck that you cannot access from the outside? Maybe in a building, right? But a balcony, but in a house, in a private house, one family house?
I think that there are cases where the decks are high enough off the ground that to get the rise over run that would be needed to build stairs, you'd be building stairs to, that are a mile long, and so yeah, I don't think it's required. But if you have like a second floor deck or a walkout basement, you're going to have such a height variance that you'd need stairs that are 30 feet long to get the tread depth right, so that you weren't having stairs that were 2 feet high. And so that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable to not have stairs, have the deck, put a slider where the 3 windows are, but I don't know.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Sensing. I'm sorry, Angelo. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. No. Yeah, I'm good.
Sensing we're ready. Mr. Pudwick, please call.
Doesn't look like anybody else here? I just want an echo.
I can hear.
Okay, that's I wonder if that's my mic. Commissioner D'Amato?
No.
And Commissioner DiMatteo?
No.
Commissioner Doyle?
No.
Commissioner Morales?
Yes.
And Commissioner Neville?
No.
All right, so this petition is denied on the basis that we have 4 no's and 1 yes.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Feel bad about that. This was a tough one. Okay. Do we have minutes to approve?
Yes, the minutes were sent out.
Okay. Motion to approve the minutes of September 24th, 2020.
So moved.
Second?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the motion. Who made that motion?
Mr.
I
D'Amato.
did.
Thank you. Okay, let me just double check something here.
We may not be able to approve these, Brian.
Commissioner D'Amato, Commissioner Doyle, Commissioner Johnson, no, Commissioner Morales, Commissioner Neville. So we have 4. We have Commissioner D'Amato, Commissioner Doyle, Commissioner Morales, and Commissioner Neville that were all present at the September meeting. So I will run through that accordingly. All right, so we're voting now, roll call vote on the minutes, and we'll start with Commissioner D'Amato.
Yes.
Commissioner Doyle,
Approved?
Commissioner Morales,
Yes.
and Commissioner Neville.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks for that. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
Angelo, do you adjourn?
Todd Doyle, second. All those in favor? Hudwick?
I have to run through it here just for procedural purposes. Commissioner D'Amato,
Yes.
Commissioner Demas,
Yes.
Commissioner Doyle,
Yes.
Commissioner Morales,
Yes.
and Commissioner Neville.
Yes.
Very good. We are adjourned at 6:52.
Thank you all tonight.
Good night.
Meeting.
All
All
right,
right.
guys, good job, Todd.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Good night, everybody.